Russo, and I call this meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Utica to order on June 18th at 4:33.
So should we announce who's here?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
would you like to
please everyone
announce
announce themselves.
George Mitchell.
Thank you, George.
Anthony Colon.
Joe Priori.
Okay,
And staff?
Chris Lawrence.
Kate Hartnett.
All right, thank you all very much. And
And
so,
you're on the line as well, I see.
Chris, I can't hear you very well. What'd you say?
I was just saying that Dave Davis is on the line, our applicant.
Yes.
Yes, we see
Oh,
David.
Mr.
Now,
Davis.
Kate, we cannot see Kate. Kate, are you just appearing by phone?
Just appearing by phone, but hi.
Just want to make sure
I have a
you
tendency to
understand.
make very silly faces sometimes, so just don't look.
That makes two of us, Kate.
Okay.
so shall we repeat the reading of this case number, et cetera?
Yes, if you would, please.
Certainly. Okay, PB case number 04-20, address 606 to 608, 614 Court Street and 611 Spring Street. Applicant David P. Davis, owner David P. Davis. The zone is neighborhood commercial and the site, this is a site plan review. Pursuant to City of Utica zoning code section 229-274, the applicant is seeking site plan approval for a project to be located at the aforementioned address. The applicant is proposing to construct a 40 by 60 auto sales and light repair facility, and includes parking for 19 cars for sale at one time, along with customer employee handicap parking spaces. Signage will be on the building. Proposed hours will be 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. There will be one employee. The business will be accessed from Court Street, 611 Spring Street, vacant lot, tax map 318.41-1-37 will be used as a driveway. Okay, I'll go back to that question. Drive-through from Spring Street to Court Street is not capable due to the location of the proposed building. A solid fence will be installed on the west side and rear of the property between residential properties. At the April 14th zoning board meeting, the applicant granted area variances for its rear yard and setback and distance between vehicle sales in neighboring residential district, as well as a use variance in order to reestablish an auto-related use at the site. This application was tabled at the special meeting of the planning board held on June 11th. And below is report of the zone, I guess from the zoning board. It says PB case number 05-20, address citywide, applicant and owner, City of Utica, proposed action recommendation. The City of Utica is proposing the adoption of a new zoning ordinance pursuant to section 2-29-123(2) of the city's zoning ordinance. The planning board shall commence a public hearing on the proposed amendment no more than 90 days from the date of application for said amendment. Is filed with the Commissioner of Codes Enforcement. Public notice of such hearing shall be made in the prescribed manner. Following the public hearing, the planning board must vote to recommend approval or denial of the amendment. Said recommendation is to be forwarded on to the Common Council. The City of Utica Department of Urban and Economic Development is requesting that the planning board vote to hold a public hearing at their next regular meeting on July 16, 2020. So that is what we are being asked to consider, fellow board members. First, are there any questions from anyone on the board?
Not for me.
Yep. Hi, everyone. This is actually, I mean, it would just be for you to set a date for the public hearing and we can get the notice in the newspaper and everything like that.
Well, of course, I just wanted to ask, if anyone had anything to ask.
Yeah.
Barring none, that's what I will then ask. But do we need a motion to hold a public hearing? If so, I move that we hold a public hearing at the next regular meeting on July 16th, 2020.
I'll second that unless there's other further options as far as dates, but I believe that's the date that's expected for the hearing, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and that was Tony?
Yes, that was me.
Thank you, Tony.
You got it.
Now, is there any discussion?
Yeah, well, I just have one question. I mean, will we be doing this on WebEx, or will this be a live meeting by then? Does anybody have a sense for that at this stage, Chris?
At this point, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Now I would just anticipate having a WebEx meeting. Again, same thing as normal. This would be advertised in the paper the 2 weeks before.
Okay.
And we would also advertise the call-in information and information to the WebEx invitation
I
to the
see.
public. You see?
Okay. I find that interesting. I'm not sure that everyone has that ability, but that if it works, it works.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, we're still not sure what date we're going to be opening. I know
Right.
it was some July or August.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it'll be more towards August from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And as we get nearer, we'll make that decision.
Okay. Well, that's it from my point.
Yeah, I would imagine that if things are opened up a bit more, with a limited number of people that could enter, perhaps in the same way they can enter a church, they could enter perhaps the Common Council chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Have something, but I don't know that we need to be there necessarily, but just so that there is a place that people who don't have access to internet have a way to speak.
People can also call into WebEx via phone, so there is that option too. However, the Common Council did have a meeting at the Common Council chambers last night. They were following the 25-person maximum
Yes.
guidelines, but that could still change prior to July. So we'll try to do whatever we can to maximize participation.
Well, that's encouraging. Thank you, Kate.
Did the council also have call in? Was that a possibility on WebEx?
Yep, they used WebEx too. I believe that the way they did it is they had all of the council members in the council chamber and the city clerk staff, but they still had people participating in the meeting via WebEx, and we're also still live streaming the meeting as well.
And they live stream their meetings on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, good.
Very good. So there's a drawing in front of us at the moment.
Well, do we need to, are we
We need to vote on the,
on that, right, Joe?
Okay, well, all in favor of the public hearing on July 16th?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
This is passed. Thank you. Right. Any other business before us?
We got the Court Street.
Yeah, PB case number 4-20.
Okay, excuse me. Okay. All right, well, I guess what I understood was that the hearing was going to be for this purpose, and we were going to be holding off on decision, but I guess that's not the case.
No, both are on the agenda today, Joe.
Okay, excuse me. All right, so, Mr. Davis, do you have something to report? We're not able to hear you. I know last time we had to use the phone for the audio.
Can anybody else hear Mr. Davis right now?
I
No.
cannot.
I can't.
Dave, could you do me a favor and just use the call-in number as well? Just like last time? It should be in the email that I sent. In case you don't have it, let me just get it up again.
Well, I think it may be a matter of unmuting himself.
Because he's not muted on my screen.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be on mine either. Okay.
Right. Hey, is this Brian's screen we're looking at?
Yeah, but we have, looks like a wedding, reception area or something.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, are you with Brian? Is this the screen we're looking at?
I have lost it. Hold on here.
That's just Brian's desktop background. Those are
Oh,
Frank
okay.
Lloyd Wright houses.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, that's what it is. That was his desktop background. Okay.
Brian must have an infatuation with Oak Park, Illinois.
Or Frank Lloyd Wright.
Here's had the same desktop background for a number of years now. In fact, since 2017.
Okay.
All right, let me see. All right, Mr. Davis looks like he has his.
He's on the phone.
Oh,
Hi, David. No, we can't hear him.
wait one moment, please. See if I can get him the. Let me just give him a phone call quick.
Mr. Davis, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, it looks like he can, but we can't hear him.
Just give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
Mr. Davis, put the cursor toward the bottom of your page. It should bring up a number of icons, including a microphone on the far left. And it doesn't
Hey,
appear
Dave.
you're muted, but we don't hear you. So I thought maybe you should.
You can. So if you use the join by phone number, well, I can hear you, but the rest cannot hear you. So if you call the 1-408-418-9388 number.
Hey, David, or Chris, I'm sorry. David is definitely muted. I see the mute signal up now. Some reason. I didn't notice it before. Oh,
Right, he wasn't muted before. I think what's going on is that he's got a problem with his mic on whatever equipment he's using. He's probably got a problem with the mic pickup on the hardware.
One moment here. Let's try to fix this. I apologize.
And I see there's a Robert Burmaster also on the phone. Well, we see Mr.
Councilman.
Burmaster.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Didn't want you to think you snuck by us without recognizing you there.
One moment, gentlemen.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Joe Priori. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I got to talk to Rosa today.
my sister.
Yes. She's very helpful. Very helpful
Good.
individual.
Okay, he's gonna call that number, and hopefully that works out for him. Gotta love these web meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, talk to the IT department and work with Zoom instead. It's a little less cumbersome.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I prefer it too.
Hello? You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Hooray!
Just a faint echo, but at least we can hear you. So that's
Correct.
you might want to mute your computer if you can, Mr. Davis.
His is already muted. If someone else has got,
No. If he manually mutes his sound on his computer, so we can't hear any of us.
Right.
At any rate, let's see if we can try to continue.
All right.
Mr. Davis, can you hear us?
I can.
That's better. Thank you.
Wonderful.
You guys have any questions for me or anything I can answer while we're still on online?
So I think, last meeting, we all reviewed this, and I think the major question was, that was left, from the last meeting, was to understand the elevation view, of the building itself and how it would be positioned on the property. So I see we have something here further to look at, more details. I don't know, does anybody in our team have any questions or feel like this is the information we were looking for?
Well, truthfully, it isn't what I was looking for. I specifically said I wanted to see how the property looked, how the building would look on the property with the existing landscaping that's there from the city, the arterial project, and the bike path. It just is somewhat helpful because it does show what the building looks like, which we didn't have before, but it really doesn't go all the way. That said, I guess my main concern remains how things look from the arterial and specifically from the bike path. On the drawing of the plot plan, it shows the building, that side of the building being used for employee parking anyway. So it doesn't show it as a single space, which suggests to me it would be okay to have fencing there that would somewhat block the view. Yeah, that's what I was referring to. And the right side of the drawing that we're seeing, that is the arterial side, correct?
This? Yes, the right side is the arterial side.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you have to forgive me. I wasn't present at the last meeting, but at the same fashion, it appears that Joe had some consternation regarding the project. But was anyone else joining or joined in Joe's concerns?
I wasn't sure during the last meeting, but since then I drove down there, took a look at the site a little bit closely. I think it was last Sunday. And as I gave it more thought, my concerns are not as I don't think I have a lot of concern here, honestly. after looking at the site. The only question I had, because it's so close to that bike path, is I'm wondering how, and I know this might be a little in the weeds, Mr. Davis, but how do you maintain plowing on? I mean, it feels like you would be plowing right into the snow path. Is that something that can be done legally? How would you do that?
Well, I'm not gonna plow into the bike path, that's for sure, because I already cleared that with the state.
Okay.
In worst case scenario, I mean, I have to bring it in through the Spring Street side, or I can just make the mounds there and remove it. I mean, I do have means of removing snow there. You know, I have a skid steer and I have a kind of like a dump cart / thing. If the snow gets high enough, I can remove it, you know.
I see.
And pick it away. But I definitely wasn't going to put it on the park like that, that's for sure.
Mr. Davis, this is Tony Colon.
Yes.
I understand that you own the property that's there currently in place, because I drove by there. There is an existing structure and we're just looking to expand, correct?
No.
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 So what's the property that's there now?
Yes.
That does not belong to you?
Yes,
Tony,
all this.
he purchased it from the URA. I'm not sure you're aware of this. Mr. Davis currently is under, he had a license to use space that's owned by the city of Utica, but the hospital is purchasing that, and Mr. Davis has been
Okay.
looking for a spot. Yeah.
So this is the spot that he's replacing what he currently owns. Okay.
Correct.
Now I'm clear now. I got you. So in the sense, now we're talking about a bike path and snow removal on a bike path. Is that what the question was or the issue was, George?
I was just curious, is he going to have any legal issues if he's plowing into the bike path? It's immediate adjacent to that, right? Obviously, the bike path's not going to be used in the winter.
Right.
So how would he handle that? I was just curious about that, and I think he answered my question.
Okay, Joe. And then Joe, as far as you're concerned, what seems to be still in your mind an issue with the project?
Well, the photos that we had last week, Tony, if you could see it, the space that is visible on the right side of the picture, where it says Lot 48,
Mm-hmm.
as it abuts the bike path, it's open to the bike path. Just beyond it, just north of it, where it says solid fence, that's where fencing starts and separates the existing properties from the bike path. That looks quite nice, actually, that fencing there. But it's open. And I raised the question of whether that could be screened with fencing. The answer I got last week was that, well, it's just a show space for cars, but in fact, the show space for cars is in the front and on the west side. This shows employee parking, so it doesn't seem like it would be a great sacrifice to put up some fencing there, even 3-foot fencing, that kind of just maintains the integrity of the bike path that's there.
Well, it looks like the two spaces are only used as an employee parking.
Mm-hmm. And there's not room for anything else there. There's the diagonal parking is on the south side facing Court Street, and then there's the parking on the west side adjacent to your neighbors. But the east side is
Joe, just so I understand, Joe, I'm sorry if I interrupt someone here. Are you suggesting that fence come down along the bike path down to about where that number 81 is on the diagram there, approximately there?
Continue that way? Yes, I guess I am. I'm saying that I think that there should be some. Look, I'm not the person to make a decision of where the fence should be, but I'm saying and what it should look like. But I am thinking that if there should be some screening continuing there. That's all I'm saying. And if we don't say it now, when will we ask for it? I mean, once we give approval today, we've given approval, and that's kind of it. So it's either now or never.
And Mr. Davis, your thoughts are that it's not necessary that wasn't in the original plan, and would there be any issue with you putting up a fence as Joe's asking?
Well, I mean, I was going to go with a different type of separation there, which, you know, I had met with the state, you know, Jimmy Piccola and their engineer, and they were fine what was there, you know. They even wanted to lease me for $1 a year that whole grassy area there if I wanted to park cars there, and I said no, I wouldn't need that, you know.
Really
But
interesting.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to need the whole. I mean, not the whole grassy area. There's what we're looking at now. I mean, there's overgrowth of the grass, which is going to be actually graded off and eventually blacktopped. This whole area is going to probably be blacktopped.
Right up to the
Other than probably 4 foot of that grassy area, you know, to the bike path.
Well,
Actually, I own right where that telephone pole is, and then you see that little bush there. There's a little bush, like a yellowish bush there. I own right up to that point there of my property, all the way down to that fence.
Hmm.
And part of the property that's in the front of there, I own according to what the state markers are, and that's why I had met with Jimmy Piccola and their engineering department to make sure that our boundaries and everything were right there, you know.
So Mr. Davis, what you're saying is that when your employees are on site, those 2 spaces will be used all the time on that side.
Well, I mean, you know, I really don't have an employees. I mean, other than me, but you know, usually my car is parked. Whatever I drive is for sale. So my vehicle that I'm driving in particular is for sale. So it's going to be parked out front or around that median there.
So basically, what you're saying is you'd have 1 vehicle there?
Yes. And in reality, I mean, I love it there.
Department of Transportation that indicates this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Do you have a letter from Mr. Piccola or anyone from the Department of Transportation that indicates what you've just said is their response?
That's their fence?
No. Do you have any communication, a letter, an email, something like that from Mr. Piccola or anyone from the Department of Transportation that says what you've just told us?
Well, I really don't have anything in particular there from Mr. Piccola or the engineer. Really, when we were there to meet the engineers, they showed me the pins and everything where the boundary line would be. So that way, when I do blacktop, I didn't want to blacktop the state's property, and so that's what it is.
So with this picture that we're looking at, if you see the evergreen tree on the far right and behind it is a fence, does that same distance from the bike path continue for your property? So what if I drew an imaginary line from the end of that fence southward, would that be the same amount of space that would be yours?
That picture where you were just showing where the fence jags off to the back of the property there, right from that corner of the fence, you're going to see as you go to the left of it, there's a marker. There's a little marker right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That marker, and then that continues at actually like a pie wedge and goes right up to that area where the flower is. Actually, that wedge there is a marking that I had put there, but we're on to that more towards the bike path, right where that tree is, where that little tree was just there. So it goes right from that corner of the fence at a high edge, right to that telephone pole to the southwest corner, right to that, right by where that telephone is, telephone pole. There's a little flower there.
Yep.
And that's where the other peg goes. That's the boundary line there, and it goes straight across the front of the property to the driveway.
Add a name.
Well, committee, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't want to belabor it too much here, but I'm a little confused by that statement about the property line. As I look at the diagram, it looks like the property line parallels the bike path, and what was just described was something that goes at some angle to the bike path. I'm just a little confused by that. But that aside, I haven't heard anything. I don't understand the question or the answer to the fence question, I guess. Either I didn't hear an answer or I didn't understand the answer. I lost sight of that.
As far as would I be opposed to putting a 6-foot fence there?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think an answer there would be helpful, Mr. Davis, one way or the other.
I mean, it would deter what I really wanted to put there. I mean, I wanted to put the 6x6 post with the drooping chain, you know, like the sunset chain going there from post to post, you know, like a decorative post, and having that there, which I thought was going to look pretty good there, you know.
Well, I think that prevents cars from, or well, there are no cars that can come from there because it's a bike lane, but it prevents bikes from going past it, but it doesn't really screen the lot from the bike path or the bike path from the lot, I guess.
But I guess, what would it be screening? What would it be screening them from? Viewing cars that are parked?
Or whatever one lines up against the side of a building. I mean, we can't, no one's going to police Mr. Davis in what goes on the side of the building, but it'll all be very visible from if it's not fenced in. I mean, if this were not a public space into which a lot of investment has been made, I wouldn't be so concerned about it, but that's the reason why I'm raising my comment. Now, I'd like to know what the planning department thinks, because they're on the forefront of the appearance, preserving the appearance of our city and how it's viewed, and this, of course, is an area that's greatly enhanced in recent times and very much on view. So I think I'm stating what I would have imagined the department to be saying too. So am I off on this? I mean, tell me.
I don't believe that a fence. I don't believe that Mr. Davis's proposed building is going to mar the landscape of this corridor in a way that requires screening of the building so that people didn't see. I mean, it's a brand new building. It's a new lot. The cars are striped. You know, the parking spaces are striped. They'll be parked in an orderly manner. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a lot of haphazard junk vehicles in various states of disrepair. If you are calling for a fence and you would like a fence, I don't know that to the biker or the walker or jogger that this is going to prevent them from wanting to walk along this path. I don't think that it's going to interfere with their sight line. I don't think it's going to interfere with their experience as a pedestrian or a bicyclist in an inner city area. I just don't see a need, personally, as a walker or biker. I wouldn't see a need to have to shield my vision from this business on the side because of what might lie there. and actually it makes the applicant a little bit more, have to have a little bit more accountability, I would think, if there was not a fence. If there's a fence there, you alluded to the fact that if there's a fence there, you can't really see what's going on the side of this building. I don't know that you would want to create an environment where you don't know what's going on the side of the building, almost welcoming something undesirable to take place.
Joe, your concern is just aesthetics, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then whether a car is parked for a business or a car is parked home, from my personal opinion, I don't see the difference there, and I don't think that it's as much of an issue. But again, if that's an employee parking spot in number 2, and it is located here, if there was some sort of fence there, you're not blocking cars that are for sale. But again, you've asked my opinion. I don't see that this area being blacktopped and having a building put here is interfering with my experience on this trail. You can see that you'll be able to see the top of the building. You'll be able to. He's not encroaching upon this path. There is a space. The state will not allow somebody to park a car close or on top of their public right of way, their public trail.
I never thought that would happen, Chris. That was never a statement that I made. It was all
I just think
line
visual
of, that was my only question. I doubt that Mr. Davis would cross his own property line. I know that would be maintained.
Hey, Joe.
Put up the fence on the abutting property. Is that the state who put that up, Chris?
Yes, that was the state that.
And what was your reason for that? Aesthetic?
I'm not too sure. That the fence was put up in many areas along. The main reason that this fence was put up, and in my opinion here, was not aesthetics. This was to protect homeowners in their side lot.
For what?
This is to protect the privacy of the homeowners and residents on this side of the trail. This wasn't done in an aesthetic manner to shield people from seeing what was on the other side of the neighborhood. If you're living along this side and there was no fence here, you would be completely exposed. You'd have no sort of privacy. And this was also probably done for the fact of, potential light glare from headlights and that sort of that sort of thing. But whenever the state put up fence, that was not intentional to prevent businesses or homes from being seen and to create a different environment for the bikers. I believe that was purely privacy for the residents.
Makes sense.
Are we going to call
I mean,
a
if
question?
so, then I would assume, I'm sorry, if so, then I would assume that the state would have continued to fence up their property line to block off my lot, but, they chose to end the fence there because they, didn't want to block the view of, on a commercial lot.
Right, and there was no residential abutting this property, so they wouldn't have done that. Had there been a residential structure here, they would have certainly continued this fence all the way until the end here. See what I'm saying? If you like the path, I mean, it's pretty noticeable, because then when they get down towards, this other area, I don't know if we'll be able to see it. It kind of terminates once you get further down yonder. Sorry, I'm making everybody dizzy. Avert your eyes.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
I've got to get my seasickness pills now.
Oh my God, I know. Here we are. I'm not moving it again.
But is it, Joe? I think we've had enough discussion. What do you think?
I think we've had enough discussion too. So, are we ready for?
I have a question. I mean, is part of this plan, would I know it doesn't accomplish what Joe Cruz has been trying to achieve here, a visual barrier, but the sunset chain at a minimum, or some separation there, probably is a good idea of some sort, whether it's visual or not. And I assume Mr. Davis is not opposed to that, right?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it'll keep the bicyclers on the bike path and the individuals on the bike path rather than walking through the cars and jumping over the chains, hopefully.
Well, and that's true. That could potentially be a desire, an undesirable side effect of you locating there, is people wanting to cut that corner to get from the trail over to Court Street.
Right.
So
Correct.
yeah, that would deter them.
And I mean, I assure you that it's going to look good. I mean, I'm not going to invest the money into this brand new building and do what I got to do, and I'm going to put up a crap fence. I'm going to put something there that's going to look good, and I'm almost sure it's going to definitely appease everybody that walks by there.
Well, the only problem with that is we won't know that till after the fact. So it's
Is
the
there a way?
I mean,
Well, I'd like to punch in. I'd like to step up for a minute. I wrote an email, and Mr. Davis, I'm going to let you know that I was the chairperson of the zoning board for 13 years, and we approved, I believe, an addition to your building before, and one stipulation was just to put a little bit of maybe a split face block, and you agreed, and you just never did it. You totally ignored the zoning board of appeals at the time, and you never did it. And so for me, you say you're going to blacktop it, you're going to do this. I'm a little bit tainted, so to speak, if that's the word I want to use, that I don't know exactly what you're going to do. Once it's approved and we go ahead, Chris, find it a little bit odd that for the little amount of fence that Joe was asking for, that would actually protect his property from people going in and out. And while I was on the zoning board, we had a lot of approvals on the auto overlay where we allowed them 5 cars and then they had 20. So,
It goes
I
back
don't
to the code.
disagree with Joe. I think a simple fence, it doesn't have to be anything, crazy expensive, but I don't totally disagree with running that fence line down, but who's to say? I mean, I don't know. You could tell us, Mr. Davis, you're going to do this and that, and once it's approved, it really, there's, for us, no way of enforcing anything.
Well, the only thing I would say is that, in the past, if that had been approved by the zoning board and that was not carried out when it was constructed, that is something that is also on the fault of our own codes department or building department.
No, Chris, let's not go down there, okay? Because we had this, but this is a touchy subject. This is an auto related business. He could put down that it's going to be for employee parking. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I mean, I'm just saying that after that, it could be 3 wrecks there. It could be, I don't know. And all I'm telling, and I'm being quite honest to Mr. Davis, and there's nothing, I am by no means trying to not allow this to go through. But, when I asked for something very simple and the board agreed, he just totally ignored it. And that goes along with a lot of other auto overlay situations where once they're approved, you got 20 cars and just, so we could blame whatever it is, but I don't know. I at this point, I didn't think it would be that huge a deal to put up a fence for that short of distance. But I'm leaving it up to the other three. Because I don't want to feel like I, put a wrench in this whole thing.
Well, Mr. Davis certainly doesn't seem to be averse to putting a fence up. I guess it's just.
Well, he seemed like he had a very difficult time saying yes. I mean,
Well,
very difficult time.
Well,
he was.
Even a dog-eared fence, which wouldn't cost that much, it looks really nice, and it would
Yep.
actually protect him from, anybody just crossing through. But hey, it's
So
up
So
to
you're saying you want
George.
more?
what I was alluding to, it doesn't have to come down the entire property line. It can come down to the point on the map where, you saw the number 81, which felt like it was about halfway down.
Exactly. I don't think coming all the way down to the corner, because there's some
Right.
nice
Landscaping.
and stuff. I don't think so. I mean, I didn't really think that was a huge thing that Joe was asking for.
So you're saying that you'd like to see more than the sunset fence that he was proposing.
well, I think what I understood Mr. Davis to be talking about was a chain that extended from post to post.
Correct.
Uh,
That's what he was proposing, Joe.
Not a, pardon?
Yes, you're correct. That's what he was proposing.
Which is not a fence, it's a chain. And just so I think, because we might have a difference in understanding of what's being agreed to here. I'm not even saying that it has to be 5 feet. In fact, I don't even think that one is 5 feet. It exists. It looks more like a 4-foot fence to me, but I don't know.
That's right.
I never said 5 feet, but this is, that looks like it's 4 or even maybe 3. I don't know, but I mean, it just.
4 foot.
Probably a 6 foot at least.
You think that's 6 foot?
The fence
Yeah, I
that
would
runs,
say that's 6 foot.
the fence that runs all the way along this trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 6 foot.
I
Oh,
believe it's a 6 foot privacy fence.
Yeah, it would be 6 foot.
Okay, well,
And if you're going to have a fence similar size,
I'm not suggesting it has to be that high.
continuity, you want to keep this a similar style. I'm just trying to
I
think
mean,
of we're
I
happy.
would say another concern would be is even if I put the fence up to where the end of the building was, now we have a spot over there for people to hide on the side of the fence. And that's why the state, I think, apparently jagged the fence off to the other direction, because, that was the section off the guy's yard where people couldn't hide behind the fence. It's not the best area in Utica, but I would hate to see somebody hiding behind the fence to come out onto the bicycle path, hiding behind the fence to, per se, maybe, go behind the building, because there's going to be a 5 foot space behind the building. So, can we get behind the building? I mean, in all, we don't have the best of the best in the area. I mean, we have people sitting on the benches all the time. We have people there breaking out the street lights, and, I'm willing to put my business over there, and I'm just, kind of trying to put something there so that the building's not being hidden where, people have to put lights on the side of their building so that way so they can't cut through the side of the building. Everybody does that. Even on the new Chem Dry building, they got lights all the way around because they're afraid somebody might cut a hole through the side of the building and go in and
so Mr. Davis, what about lighting here? What is the lighting plan around the property once you construct the building?
Well, I mean, I was going to put some lights on attached to the building.
I see. That's it, right?
So that way it would light up. I mean, the bicycle path is lit up with some lights when they're working. I mean, like again, there was.
My question is, what lighting will you be adding? Strictly on the building?
Yes.
On all 4 sides.
Definitely on. Well, I didn't want to put it on the west side because I would think that it would probably shine over onto the people that live in those houses over there, and I don't know if they'd be too happy with bright lights shining in their yard or whatever. They're sitting out there doing what they got to do, you know.
Well, it looks like from the drawing you'd be set back, so the west side of this would be in their rear yard as opposed to their front yard.
Right. Right. So I just figured if I had one light going out in the back as far as where the overhead door is going out onto Spring Street, one light shining in that area, and then one light on the east side of the building, and then probably two or three lights attached to the building in the front.
And as you get back to the fence, you know, if you were to connect this solid fence from this solid fence, would you just want it to cover these two parking spots and then be okay with it going to that, you know, more of a barrier type of fence when it got to here? Or did you want to see it?
I would, because in that way, it would be in line with the building. And
And to Mr. Davis's point, yeah, if you do have a fence that goes, you know, to here, and you do have people walking along here, you know, especially at night, and people take this opportunity to stand behind this fence just for when somebody's walking by in the trail, they can get them without, you know, too much notice, that blind spot. You know, it could be a little off-putting for some people.
well, yeah, okay. And again, I am talking about it going in line
Yeah.
with the depth of the building only. And again, I even think a 3 or 4 foot fence could probably be fine. It just would create a neat line of separation and a visual that can be more easily maintained.
That if you do have it connect from here at the 6 foot and you're going to bring it down to a lower mark, you'd have to have some sort of sloping to get there. Otherwise, it might just look like they made a mistake in ordering the fence when you jog from a 6 to all of a sudden you're at a 4, you know?
I don't know. I don't necessarily.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all agree there needs to be a separation there. And we just need to get to some resolution on what the heck that is, right? Is it a 4-foot fence? Is it a sunset chain? What are we trying to accomplish here? And what can we get to agreement on? We're gonna be talking about this for a long while.
Hey, is there a way to make an approval with the contingency that the applicant come back, you know, to address the fence, so that we at least have closure on it and we have it on paper, you know, so that if the fence doesn't go up as planned, we have a document that the board can turn to and have codes that are building enforce. This is what was approved in the final approval.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there some mechanism that way?
So I guess there's a couple ways you could do it. You could grant preliminary site plan approval and no final site plan approval until there is a plan presented for a fence, and then it becomes part of the building plan and can be enforced by codes. Or you could grant final site plan approval now, contingent upon them putting up a fence to the specifications decided on by the board.
I'm of the opinion that we should go with a contingent preliminary approval with contingencies towards the final design of a fence. I think we all agree that some separation should take place. Certainly, Mr. Davis, that'll give you some time to then come up with something that would, from the standpoint of aesthetics, as well as something that will be a natural barrier for yourself as well as for the public. Not having been a part of the original discussion, I didn't know which way I wanted, but after this discussion, I'm sure that we can come up with something that will be aesthetic pleasing, as well as something that would protect Mr. Davis and his property and his.
The only, I'm not speaking for the board here, but I just want to make sure that, Tony, you're aware, right, of the I guess there's some sense of urgency here. I don't know how urgent this really is. What timing Mr. Davis has exactly here. But I think there's some sense of urgency for him to vacate his current property, current location.
Well, Katie, then would approval with a contingency be sufficient in order for Mr. Davis to start working on the project?
Yep, that would be sufficient for him to get a building permit.
Okay.
But the contingency might be he cannot get a certificate of completion until we get to the point of the fence, something along
Yes.
that line.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's going to have to, when he goes to apply for a building permit, he's going to have to update it with the fence that, the plan with a fence as, you've directed.
Okay. And we'll arrange a meeting, before that gets erected, just to make sure that it's in favor with the board. I mean, would that also be?
Yeah, I would at least encourage that there's an engineering review of whatever that plan is of the fence before we look at it, right? So if our engineering department sees something we don't understand, we have their comments on that.
Okay.
Right, so do we have a motion then?
I'll make a motion, right along the lines of what Tony proposed. Grant, I guess it's referred to as a preliminary site approval, contingent upon a final plan that outlines the
Fence.
fencing. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So that was two that just I apologize.
Is there any-
I did.
So
Four
Mitchell,
ayes.
Tony Colon also approved.
four ayes.
Approved.
Joe Crusoe.
Okay. Contingent upon a final plan that includes a fence.
Correct.
And everybody is clear, though, that if you're granting preliminary site plan, I just
Aye.
want to make sure everyone's clear, Chris, I'm sorry. That if you're granting this preliminary site plan approval, it means he has to come back to you with the fence plan for final site plan approval.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And
Yeah,
I was Davis-
while we're at it, I don't know if you wanted to add the few lights on that one side in there, but I don't want to confuse things.
On
I mean,
the
Yeah.
side,
I would encourage that I would like to see that whatever that lighting and fencing looks like is ultimately approved by our engineering department at a minimum.
Okay, so do we amend the
So that-
amendment? Is there an amendment that required here, Katie? For the lighting?
I mean, I think that it would be sufficient just for Chris to get comments from engineering. I do not imagine that engineering is going to have any problems with a fence that's set back that far from the road.
Oh, it's according to the lights and the fencing.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Davis?
Kate, I mean, with respect to the lighting, there doesn't need to necessarily be any drawings or anything. Engineering can just comment where lighting is expected to be and that they're approving that, right? South wall, north wall, west wall, that kind of thing. And maybe the
So
type of
how
lighting.
this will work is this, I think, is that Mr. Davis will put together a plan for fence and lighting.
Mhm.
It's not going to come back to the board until the engineering has said that it looks okay.
Correct.
So what will happen is Mr. Davis will submit his plans to Chris for fence and lighting, and then Chris will bring it down to engineering. And if engineering says looks good, then it will come before the board again. But if engineering has any issues that you'd like resolved, they would be worked out, I think, before it comes back to the board.
I think that's the way to do it.
Okay.
Does that sound right to everyone else?
It does to
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
All right.
Is there
Is
anything
there
else?
anything else that comes before the board today?
I don't think so.
No, those were the only 2 items on the agenda.
All right. All right. Seeing no other new business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll
Someone.
second that.
Thank you, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day.
Take care, everyone.
Alright.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Okay, guys.
cool.